Um, so my name is Vas Taras. I'm the founder of XCulture, but today I will talk about one of the specific branches of XCulture, which is what we affectionately call XCulture Kids. And it's a little unusual for me to be sort of on this side of the screen. Normally, I'm the one asking questions, and today I guess I'll be talking. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them anytime. And so we have a relatively small group today. So if you raise your hand, I will be able to add you to the conversation, to the webinar room. So this way we can converse and talk in real time. So let's talk a little bit. I'll do a quick introduction. And then, as I said, if you have questions, we'll go to the questions. But let me give you a little sort of history of where XCulture Kids comes from. And then I'll talk a little bit about where we are planning to go, and then obviously about the business side of this enterprise. So by now, obviously, you all know what XCulture is, right? So the project itself is about 8 years old. It was founded in late 2010. And the project sort of came from a necessity. So I was teaching, still am teaching international business, and I found myself in this difficult situation where I would be in front of the classroom trying to explain to the students how it is different to work with people from different countries, how things that work, for example, in New York may not work in, let's say, Beijing or in Pakistan maybe. And so you tell students that there are cultural differences, you tell students that people are, sometimes have different values, different understanding, different protocols, and the students sort of don't, it's not that they don't believe you, it's they don't fully understand what you mean or don't fully experience what that means. It's almost, as I always say, it's like trying to teach someone how to swim on a field, on a soccer field, for example. So one really needs to get in the water to know what that water feels like. So you can't really explain it with words. So same thing here. And so at some point I thought it might be a good idea to maybe find professors in other countries who also teach international business, and it would be my students and their students, and they would work in international teams, 2 countries, maybe even 3 countries. And so this way, when I tell them working with people from Ukraine, from Pakistan, from the United States is different, they would sort of have that real experience of trying to do it. And so they will, it's not that they will believe me more, it's just they will have a better understanding. And so one day I simply sent an email to my colleagues at the Academy of International Business, asking if anyone wants to participate in this sort of collaboration. To my surprise, quite a few people responded. So it was literally just within a few hours, dozens of responses. The first time we participated or we did this project, we had 7 universities, 7 professors, 7 countries. Interestingly, all 7 still stay in a very close relationship and still participate on a regular basis. But yeah, from there on, it just grew and grew and grew. So next semester, I think it was actually 14, and then it was like 30, and then 60. And so before we knew it, this semester we have 192 people. But some universities are represented by 2 professors, so it's a total of about 150 universities. And so the university kind of side of the project sort of grew, not really by itself, but we didn't really have to do much other than just announce the project once a semester through the Academy of International Business, through the Academy of Management. And so people respond, and soon enough, it seems like everybody who teaches international business at least has heard about us. I mean, obviously not everybody, not every university participates. Some may have something already, that they have in place. Some may not have a suitable course. Some may just not be interested. But it almost looks like everybody who needs to know knows, and those who are interested participate. So we have a very, very large group. Like, for example, again, this semester, we have 1,300 people in the early track, and it looks like it will be another 4,000 in the late track. So a total of 5-point-something thousand people. And in a given semester, they tend to come from about 40 countries, and as I said, about 150 universities. So all 6 continents, from Australia and New Zealand all the way to the United States and Canada, Africa, obviously, Asia, Latin America. We've never had participants from Antarctica, and I'm hoping that one day maybe we'll find some, I don't know, a guy on an expedition there who has nothing better to do but to participate in the project. So we'll see. One time we even had a class that had an internship or some sort of a class aboard a cruise ship. So they were learning about the tourism and hospitality industry. And so they were taking a course while on the cruise ship. So I think they did some work, like sort of performed some duties, were part of the crew, and then they had a class. And so that was kind of experience plus learning plus XCulture. So we had a team of students from literally the middle of the ocean somewhere. So anyway, that's the university part, and that one works very well. We have a lot of participants. The routines have been more or less established. We add more companies every semester, or new companies every semester. New universities come every semester. Research is a big deal, so we conduct a lot of research. We collect data, trying to understand why some teams do better than others, why some people are more effective in international teams than others. And so we have a lot of researchers and professors and academics who work with us trying to understand the dynamics and performance and effectiveness of global virtual teams. So plus, again, we added, a few years ago, we added the XCulture Symposium. I think the very first one we had in 2013, but then it became really big a few years ago when we added the second big symposium in a given year. So now we have two, and one of them would be organized in collaboration with the Academy of International Business as part of the Academy of International Business meeting here in the United States and Southeast. But so many students wanted to come to those events that we had to add one more, and that one is held in summer, every summer, and so that's a really big event. So we did the first one in Miami, and then we did another one in Macerata in Italy, and then we're now preparing the next one in Calgary in Canada, and then there will be one next year in Grenada, and then we haven't really made plans beyond 2020 yet. So all of that is doing and going very well, and as I said, it's more or less standardized, and I'm sure it's possible to do it better, and we strive, and every semester we do make some changes, but that part is more or less figured out. Now, from the very beginning of XCulture, parents, teachers, professors who participate in XCulture and who are also parents started asking me if their kids can participate. So they would tell me something like, I have a child, 11, 12, 13 years old, a very smart kid. Can that kid participate? 15, 14, 16, 17 years, not in college yet, but definitely smart enough to participate. And I used to say no, because there is a big difference between a kid who is 15 and a university student who is 22, or MBA student who may be 28 or even 30. But then at some point we thought, hey, why not create a separate track for XCulture, as we call them, kids? So why not allow younger participants participate in this project and also gain international experience, business experience, make friends around the world, learn something new, strengthen your resume. So, you will be applying, or kids will be applying, to colleges soon. And so having something like that on the resume probably would help them a lot. And so we started experimenting with that in 2017. And then in 2018, we did it twice, kind of more or less full scale. So we had, I think it was like 30 students one semester, and then closer to 100 in the fall. And we just wanted to test if it works or not. And not surprisingly, I guess, expectedly, it did work pretty well. So students, even younger ones, and we decided to try starting with age 9 and older. So we just wanted to see how it goes. And so we had some teams that were 9 and some teams that were 10 and 11 and so on, all the way up to 17 right before college. And so they did pretty well. So my own kids participated in XCulture. I just wanted to kind of get a sense from the parents' point of view. And yes, my kids, at least I know, enjoyed it very much. So they made friends around the world. They often would go online, even when there is no kind of task at hand that they need to discuss. They would just talk about all kinds of things, about school, about music, about movies. So definitely very experiential and culturally enriching in that respect. They also learn a lot about other cultures. People on the teams come from literally all around the world. This semester, for example, all XCulture Kids teams have 7 and some have 8 team members. And in most cases, every single one is from a different country. The youngest teams would have 2 American students just because we had a large class of American applicants. And so as a result, we have 2 American and then 4, 5, 6 different countries from other countries. So they would at least experience some other cultures. May not be quite the same as if you go and study in that country, but it's definitely as much or maybe even more than when you go and travel to that country. Because when you go to a country as a tourist, you sort of see the architecture, but you hardly ever as a tourist engage with the local population. You may ask for directions or buy a cup of coffee, but it's not quite the same as when you work with people from this culture. Like for half a year you interact, you observe their kind of work ethics, work practices, traditions. So XCulture offers you that. One thing that I really like about XCulture, and that's something that I didn't quite expect, is that it also learns kids a lot about sort of online collaboration / communication, kind of irrespective of culture. For example, my own kids, I didn't realize they had no idea what email is. I think my daughter didn't have any email address, and my son did have one, but never used it. And so when the time came to communicate with the team, they were sort of, like, whoa, how do I do that? So with their friends, they use usually just the, text messages like FaceTime on Apple or whatever, like text messages or WhatsApp on the phone. And so the communication usually is like, one line and a couple of emojis. Now here, all of a sudden, you are a serious business consultant and you have to communicate with your team, discussing a complex project, complex issue. So you have to write emails that are informative, that are detailed. And turns out my kids didn't know how to do it. So I literally would sit down with them every evening. We would go through the correspondence they got from their team and together respond to those. In many cases, I literally would help them. We would write it together. Then later they would write the emails, but I would still kind of glance over it and then, make some corrections if needed. So I literally had to, teach them that you need to put like, name of the person you're addressing, and then maybe subject line, and then, write in paragraphs and full sentences, not just a couple of words. Because the problem here is that it's not about being formal or informal. When you have 7 people and you have a complicated task at hand, you just need to say more. Otherwise, people will not understand you. You'll have to, you just have to say it right. And so we had to teach them how to do that. Likewise, writing the reports. Again, I never knew that they don't know how to write a paper. I mean, for school, sometimes they write some sort of an essay, like 200 words on one page. Here, they have to write a serious document. And again, I had to teach them what a title page is, how to write an abstract or executive summary, how to, format their report, how to cite sources. They didn't know that at all. It's not difficult to teach. I mean, once you explain it to them, they know. But I was kind of surprised, and as I said, when I enrolled my own kids in this project, I thought it would be all about learning other cultures. But it was as much about sort of kind of learning how to do a business project and write a business report as learning about other cultures. So it was a very, very beneficial experience for them. And so, so it worked very well. So we had, as I said, 30 the first semester, about 100 kids the second. And so this semester, we have a total of about 250 kids who are on teams. And I'll give you more numbers in terms of how many we started with and, how it went in a minute. So, but yeah, this semester we have kids, again, starting the youngest teams. I think we don't have anyone who's 9, but we have a few teams that are 10 and 11. Then we have a few teams that are 12 and 13, 14, 15, and so on and so on. So each team is sort of kind of plus or minus 1 year. And so it's a sizable group, and interestingly, we have 56 countries in XCulture Kids this semester. So it's many more, for example, than the university. Even though we have 5,000 university students, they come, I think, this semester from 42 countries. Whereas the kids, it's a smaller group, but it's very, very diverse. As I said, it's hardly ever that we have 2 kids from the same country. So very interesting, very, happy about that. So a little bit more about the numbers and some business side, and then if you have questions, and I see we have quite a few, I'll get to them in a minute. So actually, let me take a look if there are questions about what I was just talking. So yes. So we have a student, Kasra, from Iran, and currently she is in Norway for almost 10 years. Yeah, very nice to meet you, Kasra. And so she has a question. So Kasra is saying, why didn't I try to contact international academic schools? I'll talk about that in a minute. No, we tried everything, Kasra, and including contacting international schools. So let me talk a little bit about the challenges of running XCulture Kids and the questions that I have for you, as well as a little bit more the kind of backstage operations. So the biggest challenge with XCulture Kids was, and I'm using the past tense because it seems like we got it finally figured out, but the biggest challenge was informing potential participants about this program. We were lucky in a sense that the university version of the project didn't need any sophisticated marketing and promotion. So all I have ever done, like literally all I have ever done, is send out an email every semester to the Academy of International Business and to the Academy of Management members. We have our kind of listservs with thousands of people. Basically, everybody who teaches international business are on that mailing list. And so when I sent my message, as I said, thousands of professors around the world see it. And so those who are interested, they participate. Those who are not, at least they see the message and they don't participate. But I never had to place ads in newspapers or send letters or do anything like that. Obviously, we also got some popularity and some promotion from presentations we do at conferences when we present our own research. We have a very large following on Facebook, so we have 200-something thousand followers on Facebook. Again, most of them are not even students or professors, but it's still a sizable group of people. And so there we didn't have to think about marketing at all. I mean, I just sent an email, that's it. Now, when it comes to the XCulture Kids, younger participants, there is no academy of, parents, or no academy of teachers or school principals that is global and you send one email and everybody sees it. So all of a sudden we have to actually do marketing. And so initially I thought what I would do is I would hire people in all major cities around the world, and I will ask them to go to international schools, as Kasra is suggesting. So I hired 40 people, all former XCulture participants, and we did some training, gave them some materials, handouts, booklets with information about XCulture, and they literally went school to school in all major cities, from New York to Beijing to Paris, Munich, Berlin, like all major cities. And it was absolutely zero effect. So they would go to a school and they start talking to them about the project. And every single time their response was very positive. The school principal, the teachers would say, oh, I love it. It's a great idea. But then they would say, but how do I do it? I mean, how would it work? Would I add it to a class? But what class would it be? Would it be like geography or English or something else? I don't know. And even if I had a course that would be suitable, they have a program. They can't just drop everything and then spend half of the class on, communicating to other countries or kids in other countries. So they quite didn't know what to do with us. So they loved the idea, but they didn't quite really know what to do with us. In addition, to talking to schools, we also tried sending letters. Literally, I sent, my assistant or administrator for this program, so he literally went online and he looked for all those international schools, private international schools all around the world, and we found exactly 100 schools once, and then I think we followed up with another 30 or so. Again, we went to countries that have large expatriate populations, like the United Arab Emirates, like Singapore, like Hong Kong, like some countries in Europe. And so we knew that there are people there, not only locals from all around the world, not only locals, but also people from all around the world. And we knew that they have schools like, the British school, they have, all kinds of private schools that cater to the population of those kids of expatriates, or to the local kids whose parents want them to sort of grow and gain some experience and international exposure. And again, I sent out, as I said, exactly 100 letters first, and then another 30 or so later on. And so far, so first it was like absolute silence, absolutely no response. And then interestingly, a few days ago, I actually got a letter from one of the schools and they want to participate. So they already applied for the next semester. So there was some response from there, but not much. Surprisingly, we didn't expect any interest or any applications from parents directly, but surprisingly, we got a lot of responses from parents. So in some cases, the presentations we did at schools, parents would attend or kids would attend and then share with their parents, or we would give some handouts to the kids and they show them to the parents. And many parents send us letters that were almost like sort of angry. They would say, I love the project, I want my kid to participate, but the principal doesn't want to include it in the program because they don't know how. So can I enroll my kid individually? And so interestingly, almost all participants in XCulture are actually individual applicants. So a parent, or maybe sometimes an older teenager like 17 years old, apply on their own. And so what happened is at some schools, they formed almost like clubs. So most of them participate just directly. So they just apply directly to XCulture, so there is no school involved, period. Like for example, this semester out of 250 kids in program and almost 2,000 kids who applied, literally about 80%, 90% of them were applicants who applied individually. But some of them sort of are affiliated with schools, and in every case when they are kind of doing it through the school, it would be almost like a club. So like, for example, the Experiential School of Greensboro here in my town, so they participate, they appointed a teacher, and the teacher is kind of supervising the kids. Oh, Kasra, sorry, I didn't realize you're a man. Yeah, Kasra, good questions. So anyway, so there is a teacher, Mrs. Nishikawa, and so she is managing the kids as if it's a class, but it's sort of done almost like a separate club, like International Business Club. And so at some schools, we also have parents, so that sort of kind of a parent organizes the club and leads the club. So what they do there is, again, they meet after school or meet on weekends or meet sometimes during the school, but one of the parents kind of leads that group, and there may be 3, 5, 7 kids in that group. So we have a few of those. But as I said, surprisingly, something we didn't predict, most of the applicants are individual, parents enrolling their kids. And so to reach those parents, once we realized that that's maybe, how most people will be participating, so instead of trying to contact schools, we decided to try to contact parents. And so we tried, again, different methods. We tried Facebook ads, Instagram ads, YouTube, and Google AdWords. And so we tried a total of probably about 20, 30 different ads in all kinds of different populations and versions. So those of you who have ever worked with online advertisement, so you know that like Facebook, for example, they literally have like 20, 30 different types of ads you can, or the same ad can be posted in like 20 different ways. It can be an ad in the stream. It can be an ad on the side. It can be like a carousel of pictures. It can be a video. It can be like how you pay. You can choose to pay per click. You can choose to pay per show, like, how many people see it. So there are so many different combinations. And so we tried them all. So we had a bunch of pictures that we had, as an ad. We created a few short videos. We created some longer videos. We did some live streams. We tried some contests. We tried like all kinds of different campaigns. And for a long time, it didn't really work. So we tried all kinds of populations. You know how Facebook works, or any of those platforms. You choose who will see your ads. Like you can choose the age group, the education level, country, interests, all kinds of, like they have countless categories that you can, target. And so we tried, teachers, we tried parents. And so for a long time, it didn't quite work. So it's not expensive. You pay about $1 for 10,000 showings usually. So like for $100, you can show your ad to literally thousands and thousands of people. And so what's good about those online ads is that you pay a few dollars and then you get statistics on effectiveness of the ad. You can see how many people it's been shown to, how many people read it, how many people clicked on it, how many people followed the ad, the link in the ad, and went to your website, how many people from those, how much time they spent, how much where they looked, and then if they actually clicked and applied eventually. So you can track all kinds of statistics, from whether or not this ad attracts any attention, to all the way to whether it actually leads to registrations, and then ultimately whether or not it sort of pays for itself. So you know how much it costs you, you know how many people responded, you know how many people applied, and so you can do some math to see if, let's say, for every dollar you spend on the ads, are you getting your money back? And so for a long time, it didn't work for us. As I said, we would get like 2-3 people signing up every day, but it's not a large number. So it's like 100 people a month. So those are not the numbers that we can work with, because it's not that we spend a lot of money on ads. We would spend, I don't know, like $20 a day, maybe $30 a day, trying different things just to get a sense of what's working, what's not. But then, interestingly, towards the end of the last year, so sometime in December, after trying all kinds of different ads, trying all kinds of different audiences, it seems like we finally found something that works. And all of a sudden, we started getting like 100 applications a day, and then even more. And so for this semester, when we started the semester, we had about 2,000 applications. Some of them were for this semester. Some people wanted to do it next semester, but we had quite a few applications. Now, the biggest challenge was, and in fact, it turned out to be a challenge. The biggest challenge was retention. So how many people from those who apply will actually meet our sort of quality requirements and will participate well. And so from the very beginning, we have decided, I decided that I will not compromise on quality. And here is what I mean by that. XCulture is a team-based project. So I'm not selling phones or my services or clothing, something that once the sale is done, you get paid and you forget about that, right? If that was the case, I wouldn't really care about the client. I mean, as long as the person is paying and buying my, let's say, phone or whatever product I have, I don't really care who that person is. So I would try to place ads in a way that it leads to the biggest number of sales, right? With XCulture, it's different. With XCulture, we don't want people who just willing to pay, because if the person participates in the project and then enrolls in the project, even maybe pays the registration fee, but then turns out that the person is not skilled enough or not motivated enough or not disciplined enough to participate, day after day, that means that the whole team will not be happy. You have, let's say, 7 people, and one of them is not participating. So when that happens, even if that person paid, I don't want that person, because I'll have 6 other good students who will not be happy. So for us, the biggest challenge is, how do we select people in a way that those who will be eventually placed on teams are, as I said, skilled, fluent enough, disciplined enough, organized enough to represent and be a good team member, right? And so here we decided from the very beginning that we will be very strict with that selection and preparation. And so here is what we've done in terms of to ensure, quality. One, preparation, so training. So unlike university students who participate in the project as part of the course, and as a result, they cannot just simply not do the work because it's part of their course grade. So if my student is in the project, they cannot just stop because they'll get a low grade for the course. So they have to carry on. And so with them, we don't really have to care that much about discipline, because these are serious students at some of the world's best universities. They have a teacher, professor who can help them. They need to do it because it's part of the grade. So usually, as long as we get the name, the students will do well. We still have a readiness test. They still have to do a little training and have to prove that they can at least understand the questions, answer them. So there are some quality controls, but it's relatively easy. So a student can qualify in one day. With the academy, what we decided we would do is we would have 4 weeks of training. And so the first time we did it, I think we had only 1 week, and that was not enough, I feel. So we have now 4 weeks of pre-project training. And so it has 2 purposes. One, we want to prepare the trainees, the kids, because again, they're not students at the best universities. So they are just kids. And as a result, or what that means is that many of them may not be ready. They may not be fluent enough in English. They may not be smart enough. They may not be skilled enough. They may not be disciplined enough. So how do I know? And so we need to teach them how to use online communication tools, how to use online collaboration tools. We need to tell them about culture, about language differences, time zone differences. We need to tell them about teamwork, about, like how to write an email. So we actually developed a course that spans 4 weeks, 16 training modules, and every week they take training and then they take a test. And so the second important purpose is selection. So those tests that we have, initially we thought it would be one big test at the end, but then I figured, you know what? I'm not even that concerned about whether or not they can answer the questions. I mean, I am, but it's not about being able to answer the questions. It's about showing up every week on time and doing that test. So if a student cannot do that, I don't want a student like that. I mean, if the student missed a test 1 week, maybe the student will not show up for the team meeting. So showing up and doing it is as much as a test as the actual questions on the test. And so when we have 4 tests, I kind of can test if the person can carry that level of performance, participation week after week after week. So that's, the important kind of element here. And so, as I said, we had about 2,000 applications as of December. We selected from those 1,000 for this semester. I think it was 950 to be exact. And so I didn't know how many of them survive. And actually, I had a meeting with my associates, and we kind of made predictions. So first, we made predictions how many people we think we will get as far as applications. And then how many of them do you think will meet our criteria and will be accepted? But then how many of them will pass that theoretical training and 4 tests? And how many of them will finish the project? And interestingly, I just looked up my numbers that I wrote a few months ago. I was very accurate. I was very surprised. I did predict that we'll get about 1,000 total applicants, or select about 1,000 people who qualify, and that's what we got. I did predict that we would have, I think I said it would be about only 200 who will actually pass, and we ended up with about 240 who did pass all 4 tests. So now I expect that there will be some people who will not survive the actual practical training. But so far, I think we had only 1 dropout. So surprisingly, so far, actually, everybody seems to work very well. So anyway, that's one of the big challenges. The second kind of selection tool, we always talked about payments. So should we make it free, or should we collect money for participation? And early on, it became obvious that it probably would have to be a hybrid model. On the one hand, it must be not free. So people must pay for participation. And I'll tell you why. So there are 2 important reasons. One very important reason is that we do need resources to manage it. Again, the XCulture University, we do have a little budget, so schools can pay. It's $250 per university if they can afford it. So some universities are so poor in developing countries that they cannot pay the money. Some may have the money but may not have an easy way to make the payment. Like in some countries, the regulations are such, banking regulations, that you can't just pay to the United States. And then some schools may have the money, but like European schools, in many cases, they say, oh, but education is free here. How would, they just don't get the concept of paying for education. But then again, American schools usually pay. So we have a little budget, and we use it primarily for the travel stipends for the students and things like that. So, but the good thing about the university program is that we have literally almost 200 professors who participate in the project and who can provide and do provide a lot of help. So which means that every time I need something, I just send an email and a bunch of professors say, sure, I can help here. And so we have some professors who help, a little here and a little there, but we also have some professors who help a lot. Like, for example, Professor Baumanis from Florida, she's managing the symposium. And then we have Professor Tim Muth, also from Florida Institute of Technology. So he is helping us when there are kind of ethical challenges. Like, for example, when there is a big conflict in a team, or when there is some sort of like a case of bullying. So he does investigate the case and then decides what we do about that. Sometimes spends hours and hours interviewing all involved parties. So we have professors, who organize different elements, different kind of offshoots of the program, responsible for different, things. We have an advisory board. So professors help a lot. And so they don't paid. Nobody gets paid at this project. So we can do it without almost any money. We do have an accountant, we do have an IT guy, we have another guy who helped us with some administrative work, plus we have teaching assistants. So we have some people who get paid, but they're more kind of in support roles. But the leaders, the professors, don't really get paid here. And so from that perspective, we didn't really need money for the university project, or at least not much money. With the kids, it's a different story. So we don't have teachers. I mean, we have a few teachers, but it's a very small number. And in many cases, they're not quite available to do kind of more substantial work. So what that means is that all of a sudden we need to hire some staff. We need to hire someone who will help us with data processing. We need to hire someone who will help us with marketing. We need to hire someone for accounting, and so on and so on. Not to mention that, again, it takes so much time on my end that one day maybe I wouldn't mind at least, gathering some money for my own travel or things like that, right? And so we do need resources, terribly need resources. So my estimate is that we need to hire at least a couple of people here in the United States to manage it. So hopefully one day I'll be able to sort of outsource all the management. I just don't really have the time to do it on a regular basis. So hopefully we'll be able to hire someone like a management level person, highly educated, skilled, proficient, and it will cost at least, I don't know, $60,000, $70,000 here in the United States, and possibly much more. And so we probably would need at least a couple of people like that. And then we need, obviously, as I said, IT support, data support. So that's, even if we hire them in India or Ukraine, it still needs money. So we do need money. And if we don't get that revenue, it means that either I have to, spend so much time doing it, or I have to pay out of my own pocket. And obviously it's not sustainable. So we need to get that money. But another reason that we decided to impose a participation fee, again, as a selection tool. So this semester we charge, can't remember the exact number, but I think it's like the full price is 75 or something like that, or 95. And then people can ask for a stipend and get like half off. And so we even decided while we are testing, if the person comes from a developing country or from a poor family and cannot pay, we'll just allow them to participate for free. And so we have a few people who qualified and participate for free. So we didn't insist. I mean, if they say, I'm so poor, I cannot even pay $45, like $10 a month, we believe the person. And so we said, sure, this time while we're testing, you can participate for free. But the logic was that as long as the price is low enough, anyone can afford it. And so if people cannot even, or I'm not willing to pay even $10 per month, or like $45 for the whole thing, maybe they're not interested enough. And if they're not interested enough, maybe we don't want them in the program. It's not that we want their money. It's like if they don't value or don't see the value in it enough to pay, a few dollars, maybe they will just not value it enough and they'll just drop out in the middle of the project. So we decided to use the money as sort of, a selection tool, but also as a motivator. So if the person paid, it's less likely that the person will drop out in the middle of the project and will spoil the experience for the rest of the team. And so, as I said, this semester, so we have a mix. Some are paying only part of the participation fee, and some are not paying at all. I think, if I remember correctly, it's actually $45 full fee, or not if you cannot afford it. Another thing that we did with the participation fee, first time we did it, the payment had to be made upfront. But one thing that we didn't account for was that some people will not survive the theory training. And then we found ourselves in a situation where people paid but could not participate. So like I didn't want them even though they already paid. And so even though we said no refunds, but I didn't feel it would be right. I didn't feel it would be ethical. So we had to issue refunds to those who paid but didn't pass the readiness tests. And so it was so much work, like it's like $45, but I literally in some countries I had to spend like half a day just to make that payment. It's not, as simple as just swiping your credit card or, writing a check. Like for some countries, just to pay into that country, you have to like fill out a ton of paper. And even sometimes after that, it doesn't work. So now what we do is we want or accept payments only after the people have qualified and passed all theory tests. So this way, the logic is, first of all, more people can enroll even if they're not willing to pay, so that they can try what it is. If they like it, they can stay. If they don't, they just leave. No payment, no concern. But second, as I said, I don't want to accept payments for people who have not qualified yet, because I don't want to issue refunds later on. It's just too much work. And so, as I said, this semester, as I said, when you look at the money, we didn't really generate much, but it looks like we should be able to cover our marketing expenses, whatever money we spend on marketing, like a couple $1,000s. Then, as I said, I have a guy who is helping me, so I'm paying him only a few $100s per month. But over the time, it's been several thousand now that paid to him, so we can reimburse that. And so it seems like we will pretty much break even. So nobody will make any profit. So far, nobody, like I don't even think we'll have extra money left for travel stipends for students for the symposium. But it looks like most of the money we've invested so far, we are sort of getting it back. So that's good. So at least it's not making me, bankrupt. So at least it's covering the expenses. But that's kind of the business side. So for the next semester, what we're planning to do is to invest much more in marketing. It seems like we found something that works. And so this semester, it was only like 2-3 weeks when it was really, really active. And so if we can replicate that rate for the fall semester, we probably can go with, 10,000 qualified people maybe to start with. As always, many of them will not qualify, will not be able to pass the theory test. But in the end, if we are left with 1,000 or 2,000 qualified people who are participating, with those numbers, as I said, we can look at some revenue that will allow us to offer more stipends, that will allow us to offer travel stipends to attend the symposium for the kids, to hire some professional help to kind of do it well. Because I will be honest with you, this semester, I think some things are still disorganized just because we don't have the staff to handle it. But yeah, that's briefly where we stand. And so we need your help with figuring out, one, how we can improve the project itself, so the project design, but two, the business side of it. So how do we make it more popular, bigger? How do we make it so that it generates enough revenue so that we can hire help and make it work? So that's sort of the challenge, and that's where we need your help. So if I had to go question by question, we would ask you first to evaluate this program and compare it to other similar programs. I don't know if there are any programs like this one exactly for the kids, but there are all kinds of summer camps, and there are all kinds of online courses, which in a sense are competition. In a sense, that's, what parents can enroll their kids in instead of XCulture. So once you've done the comparison, think about where our program, what kind of sector, what kind of segment of population it could be popular with. It could be a specific country. It could be a specific segment of the population globally, maybe a certain level of education, age, I don't know. And then the big question is marketing. So how do we promote the project? How do we popularize it? Recruitment, selection, all of that. And then, I think there are some questions. How do we handle the payments? As I said, it's a difficult issue, not always easy to transfer money across the border. Questions of that nature. So now I'll open the floor if you have any questions for me. So I've been talking so long, so I'm curious if you have any questions. So let me know. So you can ask your questions by typing them in Q&A, or you can ask your questions by raising your hand, and I'll just add you and we can talk. So let's see if we have any questions here. So there is a question that came by email. What is the age of the participants? Well, as I said, initially we thought we would go only with pre-college teens. So we thought we would go only with the people who are, like 16, 17 and will be going to college next year. But then we decided to expand it a little bit more so that we can go with, a little bit younger kids just to see if it works for them. And it seems like it does. So at this time, we accept applications, I think it's from 10 and older. And most of the participants are 14, 15, 16, but we have quite a few who are 11, 12. So I guess that's the age. And it seems to work for all of them. Obviously, for the younger ones, we expect that their parents will help them. And we not only expect, but we encourage that. So as I said, it's a nice opportunity for the parents to work with the kids to sort of bond. But so that's the idea. Ashley, you had a question there? So I see Ashley Davis raised her hand.
Yes, can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, my question to you is, how do you plan on making XCulture easier for the students? Because I know as a college student, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of tasks that you are assigned. And I was just wondering how they will be able to connect with other students around the world, not only, in their classrooms, but how can they broaden their horizon to international business students?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You ask, how do I make it easier? It's a tough issue that we actually discussed at length. Should it be easier or should it be harder? And with the university students, and I assume you are a university student, we actually decided to make it not easier or harder, but we decided to make it as close as possible, kind of to make it resemble as close as possible a real business consulting project. So it's not a summer camp, or how should I put it? Our goal is not to allow students to have fun. Our goal is to show students what it feels like, what it looks like when you work on a consulting project as part of your job. And so we deliberately sort of made it, it's not really that we deliberately made it hard, but we deliberately made it sort of dry. So we don't spend much time on sort of entertainment. I mean, if I were a private school and if my paycheck depended on making parents happy so they bring kids and pay for the participation, yes, I would try to make it as fun as possible. I would have some, fun things, just basically simply to get clients money. Here, my goal is, as I said, to give the students a realistic preview. And so that's why sometimes we're kind of sort of dry and sometimes we're sort of strict, maybe even excessively so. But the point is that, if you don't like your sort of teacher, as they say, wait until you have a boss. Same thing here. So if you think this is hard, if you think this is, boring, well, wait until you have a real job. And so in a sense, we are almost trying to make it as, again, I don't want to call it boring, but, like there is a deadline and you have to meet the deadline. There is a question and I'm not going to spend much time, adding some funny or bright colored graphics. It is what it is. There is a client, he or she needs help, and that's what we do. And so in a sense, actually, that's what makes the project very valuable for the university students. As I said, we want to make it as kind of serious as possible. Now, when it comes to kids, it's a dilemma. So should it also be made as strict and as sort of boring as possible because that's how the real world works? Or should we try to make it a little bit more fun? And I honestly don't really know the answer. So I don't mind making it a little bit more fun just so that the kids enjoy it more. But at the same time, as I said, I don't really see our role as entertainers. So as I said, it's not really a summer camp or weekend camp where kids come to play and have some fun. So that's something that I can't really answer, well. So this time we sort of use the children's version or run the same way as we run the university version. So it's basically you are in a real consulting project. Don't expect much, finger painting and singing and whatever else makes it fun. So it's a business project. But I'm not sure if that's a correct thing. So if you, Ashley, or anyone else, if you think, guys, we can design or should design it differently and maybe have a little bigger kind of fun component, I suppose why not? I mean, if it doesn't compromise, the quality of the project itself, in a sense, doesn't make it feel more like a summer camp as opposed to a consulting project, I definitely would like to give it a try. So any ideas in that area would be much appreciated.
Well, just to add a comment before you
Yeah.
read that question and answer, I do believe that since they are young, 10 to
Yeah.
17, a good way for your business to bloom is to actually interact with them in a social media type of platform. So I believe that, you can make it interactive, but also businessy. You can
Yeah.
also give them the true facts of being realistic in the real world, but you can also add, hey, you can have a little touch of, make a little slogan or something that'll make them eye-catching to what your product is actually selling and the importance of your product.
Yeah.
So I think social media can really relate to those ages. I know for me, myself, as a 21-year-old college student, I noticed that a lot of college students also like to interact with their professors. And
Exactly.
XCulture to me is very to me, it's hands-on, and I love that. I love the fact that you are actually in the business, and that's not what I want to change. I feel like you could add more to make your brand stand out bigger than those other brands that are trying to relate to those 10 to 17-year-olds.
Yeah. Well, what you're saying, Ashley, makes total sense. And if you can help us in that area, I would much appreciate it. One of the problems with XCulture is, as I said, that it's sort of kind of growing constantly. And I always am busy with sort of, managing the administrative side and never really have the time to sit down and think about those bigger issues like the ones you described. And honestly, even if I did, I'm not very good at that. I mean, I sort of know kind of academic side of it, research, the task itself. But when it comes to, making it, as you said, like brand recognition and managing those kinds of aspects of business, I'm just not smart enough for that, or haven't really gotten any training in that area. So that's why we first need your help. So if you have any suggestions, I would be very interested. And I don't know, maybe even some of you will come on board, like literally get a job at XCulture. Like if you do a good job and, if what you're coming up with, works, I would be very happy if you joined our team. So I encourage everyone to give us that. One more thing, Ashley, that you touched upon, and I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but communication, you said like online media, all that. So a couple of comments that I want to make here. One, we thought about developing some sort of a platform where people would kind of log in to communicate with the team and things, like maybe build like a mobile app, or maybe have some sort of like a thing like a Blackboard or Canvas or Moodle. But then we decided, no, first of all, we want students to use for communication what they can use even after they graduate from the project. So if we built an app where teams can meet and communicate, it might be more convenient during the project, but it would be almost like a disservice or lost a skill, because once they graduate, they can't really use it anymore. So instead, what we do now with university students and with kids, we teach them how to use WhatsApp, Google Docs, Dropbox, Facebook groups, all that stuff. And so most of them, in fact, all of them use some of those advanced tools. So they go beyond email. So they would have sometimes video chats. They would have a group in WhatsApp, for example. They would have a Dropbox where they share files. And so one, they learn how to use the tools that they will be able to learn to use even after the project is over. But two, also, we thought about developing like a platform of our own, but it would cost so much. And chances are it will not even be as functional as those free tools. Like, I mean, there is no way we can do something better than Dropbox or Google Docs or WhatsApp. So the question is, why would we develop that when there are so wonderful, those platforms available for free, and every semester something new comes along, Slack, Trello. So eventually we decided, you know what, no, let's stick with the things that people can use in real life. And so that's the idea. But then again, some people said, well, without kind of your own platform, without your own things, you don't look like a finished product. Like if you had all of that, people sort of would know that, oh, okay, that's XCulture platform, that's what, they pay for. So again, I'm kind of ambivalent about that, so not sure how to go. I see logic here and there, and that's why I'm very curious to hear your ideas. So there are thousands of students in XCulture, and all of you are business students, so smart, and many of you are trained in marketing and management. So I'm curious to see what you say. I mean, if it turns out that the consensus is that, no, we should do this or that, I guess maybe we'll try. And maybe even, as I said, some of you will join our team and help us do that. So. All right. Any other questions? Ashley, did I answer your questions? Did I miss anything?
No, you didn't miss anything. You basically
right.
hit on those notes. I think that you are on the right track, and I think that a good team behind you will be amazing to make that platform easier for you. And it'll definitely open up your business to more than, where you're located at. It'll be worldwide. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can make an app close to, the WhatsApp. That's what we're currently using, or like Google Docs, like you said, something that could be edited around the world. It doesn't need to have a stamped label or something that'll just attract your employees and people that'll know exactly, like you said, they'll know exactly that's XCulture. They'll see the label and they'll remember the label. So make it memorable. And I think a team could help you. This is not a tough project. It does come with a lot of thought process, but I'm pretty sure you are really there. You are truly there.
Well, if you help us promote it, because as I said, we have a nice product. Now the question is, how do we inform the potential customers or participants about it? So I would definitely appreciate your suggestions. All right, I'll finish with two kind of quick observations or anecdotes. One, since we talked about social media. So one interesting kind of observation, something that was surprising. So when we advertised on Facebook, one funny thing was that we had to learn how to select the audience and kind of slice it many ways. Like I remember the first ads we were placing, we would just say, like parents with kids ages such and such, maybe higher level of education, interested in additional educational programs for kids. And you can select all of those, and, you pay like your first $100, and then you look at the statistics, and like it's been shown to, let's say, 40,000 people today but like all 40,000 were somewhere like literally like Caracas or somewhere like, I don't know, Ghana. And you look at the profile, and yes, they sort of like the age that you specified, but like, for example, you said 30 to 50 years old, and like everybody is like 30, 31. And I have no idea why they select that population, maybe because that's the cheapest audience, or maybe they think that you're selling a product that just needs to sell, so that gives you like the greatest exposure. But so literally it was constant fight, like you exclude Ghana from the list, and boom, like next 30,000, it's all in Kenya. You exclude Kenya, boom, next 40,000 is like all in Ukraine. So eventually we had to learn to like go like crazier thing, like, like we would have a separate ad for each very, very specific population, like, like geographic communication. So that was an interesting, experience for me. Another one, so as I said, we do have a Facebook page for XCulture, and we actually have, like, we add a few hundred followers every single day. So in fact, on some days we add like 1,000 people in a given day. So we have 208,000 at this time, something like that. I didn't check for a while, but it's over 200,000 followers now. It's big. But again, not sure how many of you have tried managing a Facebook page. One, they have this difficult, complicated algorithm that decides who sees your ads. And so it doesn't mean that you post something and all 200,000 people will see it. Like sometimes they would show it literally like to 2,000 people, and that's it. And I have no idea why. And sometimes I think the most popular ad or post we had, it had like 50 million views. So I have no idea where they got those 50 million, who those people are, because we have only 200,000 followers. But on a kind of average post, we usually post like one post a day or so. It would be about 30,000 people who are showing the ad. And then what's very discouraging there is that, talking about fun, that you post something funny and you get like thousands of likes and shares. And you post something serious, something that is actually useful and informative, and you get like literally allows you 2,000 shows and 2 likes. And like, for example, 3 days ago, I deliberately decided to do an experiment, and I posted a funny picture that was playing on the kind of international/accent theme. So like an American officer is yelling at the Australian soldier somewhere in, I don't know, doesn't matter where it is. And he says, "Did you come here to die?" And the Australian guy says, "No, sir, I came here yesterday." So if you know what Australian accent sounds like, you know what the play words here are. And then at the same time, I post another little picture that explains how the stock market works and how much you can expect to, like a very insightful kind of animated little like 10-second video that explains sort of your expectations when you play, buy and sell stocks. Like I found it extremely insightful. And as expected, the funny picture about the Australian and American gets like, I don't even know, like hundreds of likes and shares. And the actual, useful thing, even though it's also only a few seconds, we're not talking about like a 10-page document. So got like, I don't know, I can't remember the numbers, but it's like 1/10 of the exposure. And so sometimes it's a little discouraging because, as I said, you work hard to create some content that is useful, and it gets completely ignored. And then you post a funny picture, and all of a sudden it goes viral and gets literally millions of views. So I don't know, I never quite figured out how to manage it again. So if anyone has any suggestions for the XCulture Facebook page, what to do with it, how to manage it, I would really appreciate help, because again, we have this large organic growth, but at the same time don't seem to be using it for promoting the project much. So it seems like it's more used for entertaining people who are interested in culture, but not so much for sort of business purposes, which probably could be used for. I see also a question from Emily. Let's do one more, and then we'll stop for the day, just because we're running out of time. Thank you so much for your questions, Ashley. I'm moving you back to the audience. Emily, you had a question? Please go ahead. Emily, we don't hear you, and I see you have a headset, so I kind of suspect that our own microphone is selected, because what happens sometimes is you have a lower left corner, there is an icon there that looks like a microphone, and if you select a different microphone, more likely than not, you just selected our own microphone. And I see Christian is also asking for a question, so I'll add you here, Christian. So while Emily is trying to figure out what the technological issue is, maybe you'll be able to. Christian, you have a question too? Yeah, sometimes the audio. Emily, if it doesn't work with the sound, let's try a few more times. You can just type the question. So, Christian, same thing. I don't hear you, but it looks like your microphone has not been activated. In most cases, as I said, the issue is you have an icon there in the usually lower left corner that looks like a microphone, and there is like an arrow by it to the right of it. If you click on that arrow, it will give you all of the microphones connected to your computer. And sometimes it's not the one that you wanted, so you may have to kind of try each one by one, and it might work. So Christian, can you talk?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
I would know if it's useful or useless to have another member in my team.
You mean your XCulture team?
Yes.
So you're already on a team, right?
Yes, in a team.
And so how many team members do you have at this time?
4.
Mm-hmm.
How much
Up to you. We do have quite a few people on the waiting list. So you're obviously a university student, right? So we have some universities, some schools that joined a little late. So the academic schedule is such there that they just start the school year a little later. And so we have at this time about, I believe, 50 people on the waiting list. So there are 4 of you, and if you feel that you want to have more, let us know and we will add more. It's not a problem. Do you want more? It's a good question. We actually did research, and it seems like smaller teams are a little happier, and they actually in many cases do a better job because you know each other closer, you kind of develop those closer relationships. But the risk is that if it's only 4 people, if everything goes fine, actually it's almost better to have fewer. But the risk is, what if one of them gets sick or something else happens? There will be only 3 of you left, and it's a pretty small team. It's a lot of work per person. Second, if you have more people, again, now we have countries that are not on the list yet. So if we add one more, it will be likely someone from like a 5th different country. And so in that case, again, you will see even more cultures. So there are pros and cons, and I'll leave it up to your team. So if you really need an additional team member, you can either send me an email, or at the end of the survey, there is always a question, do you need an additional team member? And usually more teams ask than we have people, but like if the whole team asks for a team member, usually we can add one more. So sometimes it would be like 2 people say we want one more and 2 people say we don't. So in that case, we usually don't do anything about it. But yes, so I don't see a huge problem either way. So if all 4 are working well, you know them, you like them, maybe you're fine, maybe you don't even need an additional one. If somebody is not responding, if somebody is not active enough, maybe it would be safer to get a 5th member. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. What country are you in, Christian?
I'm from Italy.
Italy. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's where we had the symposium last year. Yeah. Yeah. What city, what school are you at? What city are you in? Like, what's your location in Italy?
Salerno. University of Salerno.
Salerno. Okay, very nice. Yeah, we had the
Salerno.
symposium in
Salerno.
Macerata. Yeah, and we have quite a few from Milan and Rome participants. Yeah, Italians always are well represented and do a very good job. All right, well, very nice. So, Emily, is your sound working? Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, it seems like we can hear you.
Yeah.
Perfect. What was your question?
My question was, I thought maybe you could get more students applying for the 4-week trial to join XCulture. Maybe if you talk to the newspaper about it.
You mean like through news? You mean like news reports? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's a very good, yes, you are correct. The question is, how do we do it? I mean, how do we get on the news? We have a lot of publications about XCulture University. So literally over time, it's been like hundreds of publications. But the kids, I don't know. I mean, if anyone knows news reporters, or if you know how to sort of play this game, let me know. Because yes, it's a very good idea. I just don't really know how to go about it. So that's where we definitely need some help. So if you have some suggestions, I would be very, very curious to hear them.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree with you. I just, as I said, don't really know how to do it right. So,
Okay.
all right. And where are you, Emily? What's your location?
I'm in South Africa.
Yes. Yeah, so you are the Emily who last time logged in under your father's name, and so we thought that you were Frederick, right? Yes. Yeah, I remember you. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Well, nice to meet you now with video. So yeah.
Okay.
Ashley, you had another question. I see you raise your hand.
I just wanted to add on to what she
Yes,
said
please.
about the news. From ages 10 to 17, do they really watch the news? If you're appealing to that age group, you want to appeal to TV shows. If anything, you would want an advertisement
Yeah.
somewhere they'll see it, you know what I mean? Because if you're relating to 10 to 17-year-olds, 9 times out of 10, they're not sitting in front of the TV watching the news. So they would not be able to, connect with them. Yes, it could get you out with older ages, you know what I mean? But if you're attracting kids, you want to really get to them. You want to have something memorable. And I heard that you said about, you posted a funny video on Facebook that said, it had a cop and it had an Australian, and you know how, yeah, it's fun, and they'll laugh at that. They want to see funny stuff. They want to see that type of appealing news. So if you want to go to that age group, I think you should definitely appeal to them in a way that they'll perceive the message really clearly.
Yeah. Well, Ashley, there is also something more going on here. One, the big question is, so who is actually our sort of
target market? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, are those children or parents or teachers or principals? Because, I mean, ultimately, I guess, at least so far, it seems like it's the parents who make the decision, or at least so far, most of the participants were enrolled by parents. And in that case, maybe the advertisement or promotion should go to parents, not to children. Second question, obviously, is the ethics. I'm not even sure if I would be comfortable, trying to sort of communicate directly with kids, just, for the whole ethical and, privacy issues. I mean, maybe the older ones, like, pre-college, 16, 17, I mean, in most countries, they are legal age, they can vote, they can even marry at that age. So I suppose there is nothing wrong with, them applying directly to XCulture. But normally, I guess, I think we would probably prefer to sort of, deal with the adults, and it would be either parents or teachers or school principals. So, okay. And then the question is, how do you reach them? And by the way, here is a question here from Kasra. So Kasra is asking or saying that this is so sad that the schools cannot participate because they don't get the idea. As I said, Kasra, it's not really that they don't want or don't get. I mean, as long as we get a few minutes with them, they like the idea and they really want to participate. The problem is that the way the schools are set up, like at the university level, for example, if I wanted to add something to my own course, it's very easy. I just add it. I don't even need to tell anyone. So, I mean, I as a professor have a lot of freedom in how I design my course. The school teachers, they have much less freedom. So they have a school program and they have to stick with it, and that's what they have to cover in the course. So even when they love it, it's not always easy to kind of logistically include it in the project. As I said, the only format that we found so far that works, that's like almost like an after-school club, supervised either by a teacher or by a parent. Like schools have orchestra or basketball team, or I don't know, swimming team, or whatever else they may have, a chess club. So in our case, it is basically an international business club. And another challenge, again, also including with the online ads, but also in real life. In fact, that's will be the last one, but keep that in mind. One big and probably biggest hurdle to XCulture promotion is that the idea is very unusual and complicated. And so all the studies have shown that, and we see it in our own statistics. When people see an ad online, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google ads, they spend no more than, I think on average, it's like 1.2 seconds. And in our case, it's roughly that, like up to 2 seconds. And the problem here is that how do you explain them what XCulture is in 2 seconds? What I mean is that, if it was a private school, for example, I would just say private school, and everybody would instantly understand what that is. So if they are looking for a private school, they will click on the ad to see more about the location, the pricing, the curriculum, and things like that. Or if I were selling, I don't know, like let's say cell phones, again, I would put a picture of the cell phone and say cell phone, and everybody would know what that is. And then, you kind of, the audience, once they see that ad, if only for a second or two, right away they know what that is. And so they either scroll through, like, go down and don't look at the ad if they're not interested, or they click on it if they are. Or even if it was like summer camp, for example, for kids, or online course, you just say summer camp or you say online course, and everybody knows instantly what that is. With XCulture, you need like at least a minute to explain what it is. I mean, how do you say in 2 seconds that what you will do is you will take those kids, you will place them on international teams. They will work with people from like 5 different countries. They will complete a project where they will complete a project, they will complete a project in that international team for a real business Like you literally need to say at least 5 sentences before you even start introducing the concept. And so one of the biggest challenges we had was that we would pay for, like as I said, we didn't really spend much money, but we spent something, and you would pay for people to see the ads. But literally 99% of them, that on average they were seen like by 1 second, 2 seconds. And with that time, for sure that they didn't understand what it was. I mean, there is no way they could have understood in 2 seconds what you're offering. And so the challenge here is it's not even how do you reach those potential customers. The question is how do you get at least a minute of their attention so that they kind of understand what you're trying to show them. So we found that, as I said, if you spend a few minutes, talking to the person, be it a parent or be it a teacher, like almost 100% of them say, love it, I'm in. But the question is, how do you get that 1 or 2 or 5 minutes with them? So how do you get that enough time to explain what you're offering? And so that's our biggest challenge, because it's so different. It doesn't even have a word. Like, I don't know what to call XCulture. Like, it's not a online course. It's not a, I don't know, summer camp. It's not a university. It's not a school. Like, what do you call it so that people read one word and they understand right away what it is, and then, follow up or skip. So that's the challenge. Anyway, so we've spent a whole hour, so thank you so much for your attention. I'm going to stop here. If you have any other questions, please just send me an email, and obviously I'll try to have another webinar probably in early April. By that time, those of you who are in the late track, you'll hopefully have more questions because you'll start working on it. And I would be very interested in hearing what you have at that time, providing maybe feedback, so sort of if it's good or bad, kind of in a sense, and then you have more time to incorporate that feedback in your work. So thank you so much for your ideas, especially Emily, Ashley, everybody who participated here. So thank you so much. And yep, I hope I'll see you again sometime soon. Oh, and the XCulture Symposium, the invitations will be going out today. What we decided to do is, because you need to apply for visas, you need to get the tickets. Normally, we invite people after the project is over, and once we have your performance data, and we invite only the best students. What we decided to do with the students who are in the project now is to allow everyone to apply. So we'll allow you to apply now, and then hopefully by the time, a few weeks before the application deadline, hopefully by that time we'll have enough data on your performance in teams so that we can say, okay, Emily participates actively, team is happy with her, so far she's doing well, so she's probably should be on that list. And then maybe somebody else should not be because the person is not participating very well. So those of you interested in going to Canada, as I said, we will be sending out invitations to apply today. And then the actual final invitations, it will be a few more weeks to review the applications and select the final participants. We already have quite a few participants, so quite a few spots already filled with the students from the previous semesters. But we also wanted to give an opportunity for those who are in the project now to get on that list so that you can also attend and meet your team face-to-face and meet the professors and then learn something new. All right. Okay. Well, talk to you guys soon, and looking very much forward to your input and ideas. Hopefully there will be many good ideas in there.